You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of the Resilient Podcast. Today, I have a special guest. This gentleman is no stranger. Everybody knows who he is, at least if you know who ARCG Media is. You know who this man is. So today, I have Oscar Leal Jr. Oscar has been very pivotal for ARCG from the very beginning, 11 years ago, since 2013. At the time, I met Oscar on social media, Twitter to be exact, and he had a little company he was running at the time for promotions called BZB Promotions. Now, Oscar has fully transitioned to what is now Silas Pro, and he's also doing his music. As you can see here on the screen, it says Orandale Music, and Silas Pro Productions has pretty much, how many years has Silas Pro been around, Oscar?
Officially, I want to say 20 years.
20 years.
I came up with the concept right after high school, which is basically started out as graphic design, and from there it just flourished into what it is now.
So Silas Pro and ARCG have been pretty much collaborating, partnering for the last 11 years. Silas Pro controls ARCG's website. Silas Pro is in charge of all of ARCG's graphics and designs. So everything that you have seen for ARCG Media, from video editing, from photos that ARCG posts on social media, it's all from this man right here, Oscar. So Oscar, 2 months ago in June, ARCG celebrated their 11th anniversary. So, even though I thanked you over the phone, I want to thank you again for being so instrumental to ARCG's success in the last 11 years. If it wasn't for Oscar, I don't know where ARCG would be. People have to remember that when I started ARCG Media, I started it with a partner. His name was Rick. And even though Rick and I parted ways shortly after, before I met Maddie Rock, I knew Oscar first. And Oscar's been pretty much a partner, a strategy partner for 11 years. So, everybody always gives me compliments on how beautiful the ARCG website looks. Everybody likes how the ARCG Media social media looks. And I said, yeah, all of that is thanks to Oscar. So, folks, if you are looking for web hosting, web management, even if you're trying to create a shop and you want somebody to run the shop for you, or if you're looking for graphics or promotions, please reach out to us, to ARCG Media. You could also reach out to Oscar. Oscar will be sharing his contact information at the end of this episode. So, Oscar, first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast. The last time I tried to set something up with you, but you was under the weather, and now you're back and you're feeling better. So,
Yes.
Oscar is technically my second guest on this podcast. My first guest was Nikki, and Oscar's fully aware of the Resilient Podcast. He's aware of why it was created, the story behind it, and I also started talking to Oscar about what I spoke to you guys about in the last episode, which is the Resilient Project, which is the documentary. So, believe it or not, when that documentary is done, Oscar's going to be part of the editing process.
Mhm.
Oscar actually edited those videos that I did in Philadelphia for the month after WrestleMania, which I posted in April. And like I said, everything that ARCG does, it's through Oscar. So we're gonna get to learn about Oscar in this podcast, and I'm so excited. I'm pretty sure Oscar's gonna mention things that I've never known about him. And Oscar lives in Corpus Christi, Texas. He has a beautiful house. He has a beautiful wife. Her name is Amber. And Oscar, is one of the most decent human beings I've ever met in my life. I think this is the reason why our friendship and partnership has been going on for as long as it has. I know that Oscar is a man of faith. I know that he's a Christian, and I love that about him. And I couldn't ask for a better business partner. And I've done business with a lot of people. I'm sure Oscar's probably done business with a lot of people, and no one's ever done me wrong. Um, you know, to the point with where Oscar is at. I've had a lot of issues with a lot of people, but Oscar's never done me wrong. Oscar's never steered me wrong. Oscar's never led me to a place where there was trouble, there was frustration. Oscar's always been very great with communication. He is a busy man. He does have a wife and he does have a job that he does a 9 to 5 pretty much. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into how he juggles all of that. But, for 11 years, I've had great communication with Oscar. He is one of the most, how can I say this? He is one of the masters of communication, if I could put it in a better sense. He gets back to me on time. If he doesn't respond to me like within an hour or two, which I'm not expecting him to respond right away, but sometimes he does respond right away. But if he doesn't respond in an hour or two, he'll definitely respond before the end of the day. Um, so I feel like I'm done praising Oscar. I want to ask Oscar some questions because, Oscar, is this your first podcast? Have you been on a podcast before?
This is actually my second podcast. The first podcast I wasn't a guest, but some of my friends on TikTok mentioned me on theirs. I believe it was called My Third Place Podcast. And the way the host described it is he has different safe places where he goes to relax and unwind. And he said that having that podcast was his third safe place. So that's why they called it that. So
Very,
this is my official second one. And
very nice.
you're my first guest. I'm your first guest on your podcast.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, you know, like I said, when I started this podcast, I thought about what kind of guests I would want to have. And I think that, with this podcast being about resilience, I've never came across someone more resilient than Oscar. And, I'll tell you why. Oscar's got a story to tell. And, I've heard it before. And I want Oscar to share it with us today on this episode. And this episode is called Patience. And we're going to talk about patience. So, my first question to you, Oscar, is how do you define patience? And why is it an important trait in building resilience?
I think it's an important trait in building resilience because you have to know yourself, I want to say, and the reasons why you do what you do. Um, Whenever I started Silas Pro, which is short for Silas Productions, I felt like my skills in graphic design and things like that could be better utilized, with helping others. And I implemented those and improved myself, and practiced and to be the best. And just continuing the learning process to me took a lot of patience. There's a lot of fine details that goes along with graphic design. A lot of things that go into the back end of managing a website. If something goes wrong, you have to know where to look. For example, like if there's an issue where a picture doesn't show on a website, it'll show an error message. I would have to know why that's there, and just learning how to do all of that took a lot of patience for me.
That's yeah. Um, I want to start asking you some questions about your personal experiences that lead up to patience and resilience. So, my second question to you is: can you share what sparked your passion for music and how it has influenced your life and career?
Yes, absolutely. I want to say what sparked my interest in music would be my parents. As you may know, I grew up in the church from from the time I was born. I was always around my father and my mom who sang in the church, and I would see them, and I wanted to join them with the setting up the program for the church and playing the instruments, even the guitar, things that of that nature. And I remember being around 6 or 7 years old and just playing around with the piano at the church that we had at the time. And I want to say my father was the one who saw that interest in music, and he got me into some piano classes and things like that. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. And as time went on, I started to purchase equipment like such like this microphone that I use for when I play the piano.
Mhm.
And it's just it was just great. I mean, I love it. I love doing what I do. I personally feel music is a part of who I am, my experiences, and it's very emotional for me. Whenever I play and when I sing, I put all my heart and soul into it, and it's just wonderful.
That's good. My third question to you is: you mentioned church. As a man of faith who attends church every Sunday, because I know you attend church every Sunday, I've reached out to you on Sundays, and you told me you was going to church or getting ready to go to church. Can you tell us about how your faith has guided you through life's challenges and successes?
Yes, I want to say faith is a very important part of my life, our family's life, and whenever I feel discouraged or feel that I just need motivation to do something, I pray. Reach out to God and ask Him for guidance. Um, it's just something that I'm so used to doing, and knowing that I have God there to guide me, to comfort me, eases my mind. You know, sometimes I feel like, who can I reach out to help me with something that I might be going through? It's like, yes, there are friends, yes, there's family, but I know that God will always be there. And I'm just so thankful for that.
That's good. Um, my next question to you is, and for those of you who may not know, a few years ago, Oscar helped someone go viral on social media. As I mentioned before, Oscar lives in Corpus Christi, Texas. And Oscar went to the movie theaters one day to see, what movie was it, Oscar, that you went to go see?
I went to go see Avatar 2.
Avatar 2. So a few years ago, Oscar goes to the movie theater close to his house to go see Avatar 2. And Oscar's got a little thing going on with TikTok. He's a TikTok influencer. And he records a video of a gentleman who is named Jason. And Jason got nicknamed the popcorn guy. And the reason why he got nicknamed the popcorn guy is because if you watch the video, which I'm sure Oscar, you still have this video on TikTok.
Yes, I do.
It's a video of the guy kind of like tossing a popcorn, you know, box, a bucket, like someone would spin a basketball, and he's adding all this this butter to it and stuff like that. It's really nice. And Oscar, you helped Jason go viral on TikTok. Can you talk about that experience and what it taught you about the power of social media?
Yes, I can talk about it. Um, of course, I personally was surprised when it first happened. It was very exciting because that had never happened before. And what happened was the video started to grow in views, uh, by the hundreds, by the thousands. And well, I had never happened before. By the time it got to 40,000, I actually had messaged Cinemark on Instagram, and I let them know, hey, one of your employees here got a lot of views on this video I made for him, and I'm not sure what they did, but from there it just skyrocketed, and they were very helpful with the process because they wanted to make sure, that no one took advantage of Jason. There were a lot of comments about who is this guy, where is he located. We wanted to make sure, everything was handled correctly. Um, and yeah, I was in touch with them for I want to say maybe about a month or two after that happened, just to make sure everything was done correctly for him. Um, as you might be aware, he was in the news. I myself was interviewed by the local news station,
I
so that was
remember that.
exciting too. Yes, and the the lady from our local news had messaged me on Twitter and said, "Hey, we heard about your video. We'd like to know if we can speak with you about that." And sure, sure. So it was. I thought it was just going to be a call, but it turned out to be a Zoom call. And much like the setup we have here, the news woman who talked about Jason on TV was the one who asked me about the video, and it was just like wow. And regarding the power of social media, I believe that it could be a useful tool, if it's used for a good cause. There are many negative things that go out that happen in the world, but if it's used for a good cause, such as this, to help Jason and his family. I just thought it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, me too. I remember, to add to that, I remember someone that follows me and follows Oscar on Twitter reaching out to me. And they said, hey, well, first they reached out to Carl. Carl is one of the people at ARCG Media. And Carl reaches out to me, but, for some reason, he didn't send me a text. He actually wrote to me on Twitter. If he would have sent me a text, I would have seen that quicker because sometimes I don't look at my social media notifications, especially when my phone has, like, not right now, but usually my phone looks like this times 20 with all these notifications. So, you know, Carl had sent me a message and said, hey, Oscar just made the news. Something's going on. And then as I was reading through the messages, I read a message from an associate of mine who also reached out to Maddie, and they were like, "Hey, is this your guy? Is this Oscar?" Because I always bring this up to Oscar, and Oscar laughs. But a few years ago, people thought that Oscar was not a real person.
I remember that.
I had a client, and people know who he is, world famous. He used to be a professional wrestler. His name is, well, he still is a professional wrestler, but he used to be a professional wrestler for the WWE. His name is Brooklyn Brawler. And one day we were talking, and Oscar was helping us at one point with our algorithm. So we would tweet something, and Oscar would help us boost that tweet. And Brooklyn Brawler asks me in a, we're hanging out, and he goes to me, Oscar hasn't responded to my messages. I sent them a few tweets and he hasn't retweeted them yet or whatnot. And Oscar was busy that day. And I said to him, all right, don't worry about it. Oscar will get it. When he sees it, he'll get it. So he goes to me, can you reach out to Oscar? So I said, sure, I'll reach out to him. But I said, Steve, I don't want to reach out to this guy if you already reached out to him. It doesn't make it any better. He goes, well, maybe if he sees your message, he'll probably do it faster. So Maddie and I are looking at each other, chuckling, and he wanted the tweet to blow up. So I reach out to Oscar. Oscar takes a little while to get back to me. And eventually Oscar retweets. But before that even happened, Brooklyn Brawler was like, I don't think Oscar's a real person. I think Oscar's a robot or something, or a virtual assistant. And I said to him, well, he is like technically, I was like, well, Oscar's definitely not an assistant, but I was like, he definitely is a virtual uh, person. So he goes to me, I knew it. He's not real. I said, well, no. Virtual in the sense is like the way he works through social media, through online. I've never met Oscar in person. I've known Oscar for 11 years. We've never seen each other in person because I haven't been to Corpus Christi and Oscar hasn't been to New York City. But, I know that eventually Oscar and I are going to meet at some point. So because he said that, other people started to say the same thing. So now I have all these people saying to me, is or Andale even a real account? It got to the point where people were trying to report Oscar's account to get it suspended because they thought he was not a real person. And I'm telling Oscar these things as the years go by, and Oscar can't he can't help but laugh. And the first time I spoke to Oscar on the phone, Oscar, has a deep voice and he sounded very robotic. So I said to myself, oh boy. And this is before Brooklyn Brawler even, was in the equation. But I said to myself, oh boy. So, when he's telling me that he thinks that Oscar is a robot, I remember that conversation I had with Oscar where I said to myself, I remember when I first spoke to Oscar myself, I thought he was a robot too. And then people are like, well, he doesn't move in his videos. I was like, what videos? I said, his TikToks. He doesn't move. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't move? He's just sitting there and he adds all these things, all these filters. I'm like, well, because obviously this is what he does. And he's like, but he doesn't move. We don't know if he's real. Folks, as you can see in this episode, Oscar is real. You see that? He's wearing a Houston Astros hat. He's got glasses on. He's got headphones on, and he's moving around. And he's moving his face around. So Oscar's real, and I'm glad that Oscar's real. I'm glad that I was able to address that a time ago. But yeah, it's funny. Like a lot of people didn't think Oscar was real until that video came out on TV. So I watched the actual clip, and I'm like, wow. And then I was like, it's really Oscar. So I reached out to Oscar. I congratulated him for that. And then the next thing you know, I see Jason is like on the Grammys or something, or the Oscars. I don't know if it was the Oscars. And, they have a skit of him on the Oscars. And I'm like, this is amazing. So, again, this is something that Oscar did. So people got to recognize that Oscar knows what the power of social media does. And Oscar's been doing this for years. And, this is why I believe that my partnership and my business relationship with Oscar is one of the best ones ever, one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I'm forever thankful for that. So I want to move on and I want to continue to talk about patience and resilience. So this is a question I ask everybody. And now I'm asking you for the first time. What does resilience mean to you? And how has it helped you navigate obstacles in your personal and professional life?
How has it helped me in my personal and professional life?
Yes.
I want to say, let me think for a moment. I think it's the commitment that I have to myself, or a personal commitment that I have to the tasks that I want to work on, and the respect that I have for the people who place those requests. And I always appreciate you, Rob, and ARCG Media, and everybody on the team. You guys are just wonderful to work with. And so knowing how important it is to you for something to be at the highest quality possible, I think is what helps me to be better at what I do, to be resilient, um, in terms of what that project, what you want to accomplish. And I see your vision. Like whenever you have an idea, I envision it in my mind, and I say um, how much of effort, what resources, how much energy is it going to take to get this done? And I want to say I always put in 100%. If at any point I feel that something can't be done, I let you know. You know, hey, there's something happening where I might not be able to get this done on time, and I let you know, and I strive to be the best at what I do. And I just think that's just a part of my personality, and it shows. And I appreciate your kind words regarding that.
Of course, I appreciate it. Um, while we're on the subject of resilience, I want to ask you, can you share a pivotal moment or realization that has significantly advanced your path to resilience?
Yes, there is a particular point in my life where it describes that exactly, and almost word for word. You might know that my mom did pass away. She passed away in 2010, and that was a pivotal moment not only for me, but also for my father, my sisters, and the rest of our family. And I remember falling or feeling overwhelmed with this a sense of loneliness. I mean, of course, she is my mother. I love her and I miss her, but there was this sense of grief that I felt like I would never overcome it. And I remember the day my dad and I were doing some preparations. This was after her memorial service, and I spoke with him about it, and he said, this is something that's going to change the rest of your life. And I felt helpless, and he reminded me that God was the only one that was going to be able to get me through this, and we prayed. And from that moment forward, I just dedicated myself to him, and it was just something that was life changing. I remember thinking to myself, oh, I could either stay in this state and feel sad, feel discouraged all the time, or I can strive to be better. I can strive to be happy, and I am thankful that I was able to overcome that day. It was a very dark day for in my life, and I just feel better knowing that I was able to overcome that.
That's good. You know, while we're talking about that matter, um, you know, since we've known each other for the last 11 years, I remember you had an uncle that passed away as well. I remember your wife had someone that passed away in her family as well too. Um, and I had my share of losses as well. 2019, I lost my grandmother. 2021, I lost my uncle, and you know, a year after my uncle's anniversary, my aunt passed away the same day. His sister, she passed away from heartbreak syndrome, and it's been very rough and tough for myself, for my family. My mom has definitely taken it very hard because in the last 3 years and a half, she lost her mother, her brother, and her sister.
Mm.
Um, I'm sharing the same loss because those are also my family members as well. You know, and my grandmother was the most important person in my life. You know, she passed away, and I felt lost. And you mentioned how days have gotten brighter for you. It's gotten better for you over time, and I look forward to the days to get brighter for me. As you may know, Oscar, I recently had a breakup, and it has now been officially 5 months since my ex girlfriend and I broke up. And unfortunately, we were supposed to celebrate our 1 year anniversary a few days ago, and that didn't happen. We broke up in March, and our 1 year anniversary was August 20th. I went to Philadelphia, and I was just there on the 18th, which is the day that I met her. A year later, just reminiscing, just soaking it all in, just remembering everything that happened that day. From the moment that I took the Amtrak to Philadelphia, I waited for her to pick me up. So much traffic. It was like a Friday, I think it was, and there's so much traffic. And she spotted me like almost a mile down the street, and she was a private investigator when I met her. So I said either she's wearing binoculars or she's just got that eyesight because she was in the military. And she saw me like a mile down, and she was like, I see you, you're wearing all black, and you got a luggage in your hand and whatnot. And I walked up to her, and I got in the car and we took off. And you know I may have been healing and coming to terms and making peace with the deaths that I've had recently, but now ultimately I have to. This is another loss. This is another thing that I'm mourning. No one died in this situation, but the love that her and I once shared has died. And it's been very, very difficult. And because of her is why I created the Resilient Podcast. I'm trying to find resilience, and I know I will at some point. And Oscar, I do want to appreciate you being there for me during that time that I lost my relatives, and also even when I mentioned to you this breakup, because you know how happy I was at one point, and then eventually how sad I became. And at the end of the day, all I can say is this is what happens in life. We're meant to lose things and people, and it either makes us or breaks us. In your case, you lost your mom in 2010,
Yes.
and you chose to be a good person after that. You chose not to be bitter. You chose not to be mad at the world. You didn't take it out on anyone. And I believe that everything you do, especially when you go to church, you do it for her, you know, and she's very proud of you. I know she is. And I know that, you are an inspiration to a lot of people. I don't know what it feels like to lose a parent. Thankfully, I have my parents with me, but my folks are getting older, and my father's in his 70s, my mom's in her 60s. So, I don't know if I'll be mentally prepared for that day. I don't think we're ever mentally prepared. Um, but I'll do my very best, and hopefully I can deal with it the way you dealt with your loss as well. Um, while we're still talking about faith and resilience, I wanted to ask you, in your view, how does your faith shape your perspective on resilience and overcoming adversity?
I wanted to say that faith is a key to a lot of people's decision making. And when it comes to diversity, I feel that everybody deserves an equal chance to follow their dreams. If they have an idea, if they have a passion, that everybody should have equal opportunity to obtain that goal, to reach that dream. Regarding resilience, if you have a passion uh, for music, for example, in my personal life, I found it as a way to express myself. I found it as a way to relax myself and find that thing that makes you want to become a better person, a better version of yourself. And anybody is able to accomplish that if they set their mind to it if they have the right support and you're able to do that. Anything is possible.
I want to talk about challenge is and strategy when it comes to patients. Um, and we know that there's common situations where people struggle with patience. So I want to talk about strategies for building patience. Oscar, what techniques or practices do you recommend for cultivating patience?
I want to say to be organized, but to not be organized in a way to where it becomes overwhelming. Um, for example, if I receive multiple requests to do graphic design, I do my best to respond to that person to let them know that I saw their request and give them an estimated time of when it can be accomplished. If they don't provide a deadline, I always ask because I feel that my mental health also plays a lot of a big part in that as well, where I don't want to feel that I'm working all the time or feeling overwhelmed with trying to finish a deadline. I separate my day by priorities. There's, of course, my 9 to 5, and then the things that I have to do at home, things that I do with my wife um, whenever we get time to relax and things like that. But it's just a matter of staying organized, knowing how to communicate with others, especially when you have to do so much in your own life. I want to say that that is my best technique is organization. Come up with a plan that helps you to complete your tasks, but not overwhelm you at the same time.
I like that answer. So, you know, I want to add something to that. I want to talk about personal and professional balance. When you think about your future, what are you striving for? What are your biggest aspirations and goals?
Right now, my biggest aspiration is to be a successful recording artist, but not in a sense of going out and performing. I want to have um, the chance for my story to be heard because a lot of the words that I write are from personal experiences, and I want for people to experience that that love and that dedication and that resilience that it took for me to get that out into the world because I feel that because I write um, my lyrics from the heart that a lot of people can appreciate it more, and that is my biggest aspiration right now. I want to be able to express myself and allow others to feel the happiness, to feel the reason why I needed that motivation, whatever day that was, to see something from my life, to share my life with them. In other words, through my music, that's something that I feel I've wanted since I was a kid. It's kind of like learning a new instrument. Like why do you want to learn the instrument? Well, is it for myself? Is it to perform? Want to say it's for both. It's something that is not only fun, but it is also something that I'm passionate about. So that is my biggest aspiration right now.
Sounds good. Um, what message or advice would you give to others who might be facing similar struggles in their personal or professional lives?
Let's see. My biggest or my first piece of advice would be to never let go of your vision. I want to say that one of the things I remember was, and I'm trying to remember more or less the time. I want to say I was about 12 years old. I had this idea, and from there, it flourished to what it is now. And I haven't mentioned this before, and I don't know if you know this, Rob, but I was 12 years old and I gave myself my own slogan. Do you want to know what it is?
Sure. Sure.
Multimedia extraordinaire. And it's in
Okay.
my link tree.
I've seen that before.
I came up with that when I was 12 years old, and it's in my Twitter bio as well.
Look at that.
And it's just from there I gave myself a vision and I went with it. And don't lose sight of what you want to do. And it's everything, anything is possible.
I like that. You know, a few years ago, Oscar, you know that I'm a big fan of WWE.
Yes.
And a few years ago, I'm sure you remember Edge.
Hmm.
You remember Edge? He's a Hall of Famer
Yes.
now. His name is Adam Copeland in real life. One of the most resilient people I've ever seen in my life. You know, he threatened last year to retire from wrestling, and we thought he was retiring, but he actually ended up going to AEW after he left WWE.
Okay.
But, you know, he came back in 2020 because he had, unfortunately, a injury that was said to him that he would never wrestle again. And Edge persevered. You know, he found resilience and he came back and was able to come back and do what he loves. But you know, when he retired, he got inducted to the Hall of Fame because the WWE kind of wanted to honor his legacy with the circumstance that unfortunately he had to retire young. And Edge said in his Hall of Fame speech something along the lines of, "When you decide what to be in life, go be it."
Wow.
And it was so simple, right? It was so simple to a lot of people, but it's the truth. You know,
Yes.
when you decide what to be, go be it. He wanted to be a professional wrestler. That was his dream. And he became exactly that, a professional wrestler, and still is a professional wrestler. You know, and I want to thank him for what he did coming back to WWE. I had, you know, by the time I started watching wrestling live in person, Edge was already retired. But when he came back in 2020, I was excited because I got the chance. I couldn't see him in 2020 because unfortunately the pandemic happened. So I couldn't see any of his matches. But I finally got to see a match of him in 2021. And the first time I saw Edge wrestle was at WrestleMania 37 in Tampa. And this was the WrestleMania that was the first one with fans in attendance because 2020 there was no fans.
Mhm.
So I was front row with my friend Mega Ran and a few other people and a rapper that a lot of people know by the name Wale. And I was in my feelings. And my friends looked over and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I'm finally seeing Edge wrestle." You know, a guy who knew how to find resilience and a guy who said, uh, when you find out what you want to be, go be it. And,
Wow.
he beat the odds. The doctors told him he could never do this ever again. And he's still doing it. He's in AEW right now. I don't
Wow.
watch AEW, so I don't know. And Edge is in his 50s. So he went to AEW because obviously, if you remember Edge, you remember Christian, his tag team partner. So Christian is in AEW, and because he wasn't in WWE, Edge was like, "Well, you know, I think I've done everything I needed to do here. So I'm going to go to AEW and go have some fun with Christian before I finally hang up the boots." So when you mentioned the story of the 12-year-old Oscar who said multimedia extraordinaire, like it takes me back to that moment where Edge knew as a child what he wanted to be. You know, when I was a child, I did get asked the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And there was so many answers. I wanted to be a baseball player for the Yankees. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to be a singer, but I didn't do any of those things. I became a businessman, and I don't regret it. I think that being a businessman is one of the best things I ever did. Obviously, if I never became a businessman, I would have never met you. So now, since we're in the subject of passions and and we're talking about business, I want to ask you a question. How do you balance? Because you was talking earlier about not wanting to get overwhelmed with certain things. So, how do you balance your personal passions, such as music, with your professional responsibilities at ARCG Media and your main job? And what strategies do you use to stay motivated and focused?
Off the top of my head, and it seems a little bit out of order, regarding your question, but what keeps me in, I guess, in focus is give time to do something that you enjoy doing. And I personally practice the piano every Saturday when possible, because it completely clears my head. Whether it doesn't, I don't feel overwhelmed or stressed or anything. And in a way, it prepares me for the things that I do have to do. And I give myself some time to just clear my head. Sunday, of course, I prepare for church in the morning. Um, I get there. I help the music director to create the program. We go over the music together, and at that time, that's all I'm thinking about. How is this service? How is this church service going to go today? And if you've ever seen somebody working behind the scenes, I'm there doing hand gestures to the audio guy. I'm doing everything, and people just look at me uh, from the bench pews, and I tell the guy, the volume is too loud. I just go like this, and he already knows what it is because mic one, mic two, and every day I set up the microphones, I set up the monitor speakers, the TVs for the slideshow. I type up the music that we're going to do, and that it's just focus. And whenever I'm at work, it's about work. So there, not a lot of I work in advertising. That is my day job. It's something I enjoy doing. I do a lot of graphic design there and web management. So it all ties in together. Something that you already enjoy doing. It doesn't feel like work. But doing one thing at a time, to me, just keeps me uh, from feeling overwhelmed. Like I already mentioned, focusing on one task at a time is also something that helps me a lot. And when you are done with that, that's when I'm able to relax and do something that we enjoy doing. Me and my wife are huge movie fans. We're always watching TV. We're always talking about movies. We're always talking about our favorite TV shows and things like that. So yes, whenever I'm not playing the piano on Saturdays, uh, the rest of the day, my wife and I are just enjoying our time together. Whenever I am at work, um, that's what I'm doing in the evenings during the week. After dinner, it's time where we spend together, my wife and I, to do the things that we want to do, watch television or play board game, things like that, just so that everything is not just everything at once. It's you don't want to stress yourself. You want to focus on one thing at a time, and I want to say that's my best recommendation.
Okay, I like that. Oscar, since we're on the subject of music, I know that you recently came out with a new song. Do you care to share a little bit about that before I ask you the last few questions
Sure.
and we wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in the beginning of June, um, my wife and I were discussing the possibility of me starting a music project, and I was able to release my first song, which is a song called Desiree. Desiree is a song that I wrote for a friend of mine. We were all hanging out together. My wife was there as well. Before we got married, it was just a group of us at one of our old jobs. We were hanging out, and one of my friends said jokingly, "Nobody ever writes me a song." And I said, "I'll write one for you. I'm a music guy. I'll write one for you." And it was just in passing. Didn't think anything of it. Um, it took me about 14 hours to write Desiree. I sent my friend the lyrics. They are romantic, but she approved them. She loved it. I even gave her a sample to listen to it, and we were able to release that song on June 4th. Right now, it's on Spotify, Pandora, a lot of the most popular streaming platforms, and all of that just happened so quickly. And I want to say it was meant to happen because the June 5th was my birthday, and my wife surprised me by getting me a new recording software that I'm able to plug into the my keyboard, my piano keyboard, and I'm able to edit songs now on the computer. And I was just so happy. I cried because that was something that I needed and something that I had wanted for a long time, and I was just so thankful for that. But yeah, I do have Oanderly Music on Twitter as well as TikTok, and I do have a new YouTube channel for it, which I will dedicate to music videos and a lot of behind the scenes things. And I haven't really posted much on there, but I do have a YouTube for that as well. And it's just been a really fun experience. These past couple of months have really shown more of my personality, like how it's just a very exciting how it all happened. It was just so quick, so exciting because I wanted to know how do artists get on Spotify? How do they get on these platforms? And I figured it out. you know, you actually have to apply to get an artist profile, and they go through a verification process. They need to know that you're an actual real musician. They don't just give those things out to anybody. The Spotify was the first one I was approved for. So now, whenever I release new songs, it's automatically shared on there. And I have a few followers on there already. And I was so excited. I made a video about that where on my Pandora, it showed I had 36 followers. And it's not much, but to me, hey, those are people who listen to my music. And I have a lot of friends on social media who listen to my music and they tell me that the song is wonderful. And I'm just very happy that I got to share that one. It's just been so great.
Yeah, I actually heard that song. The song was beautiful. So thank you for sharing that information with us. And I also want to thank you. Recently, I reached out to Oscar and I sent him some photos of my ex girlfriend, and I had sent him a song, and he was able to actually create a beautiful video for her that I sent to her a few days ago to kind of like, you know, remind her that I'm, even though the 1 year anniversary never happened, um, it's what I would have gave her anyways if we did have the 1 year anniversary. So, because Oscar has all this new software and all that stuff, he was able to create that video for me. So thank you very much for that, Oscar. Um, I want to ask you two more questions, but I want to touch a very important subject right now. Um, Oscar's a big fan of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Um, and, because he's a man of faith, he doesn't really drink alcohol. But Oscar's been very supportive of my journey as a brand ambassador for Terramana. And I have a bottle here of Terramana, the Añejo. And I want to take a Terramana toast right now. Terramana, you know, first of all, mana means power, gratitude, prestige, and authority, right? So Oscar's a very powerful person, but I want to take this time to make a toast to Oscar for his success, for the 11 years of service to ARCG Media, for the song Desiree, for everything that you've done for your mom. And a few days ago, I was a little sad. It's been a very uh, sensitive month for me because one, I wanted to celebrate the 1 year anniversary with someone who I didn't get a chance to do it with. Number two, last year we lost a good friend by the name of Wyndham Rotunda. Wyndham was known in the WWE world as Bray Wyatt. Wyndham and I were in the process of beginning to work with each other, where I had reached out to a neighbor who's into horror films and whatnot, and he fell in love with the Fiend mask when I showed him the mask that Wyndham was wearing a few years ago when he became the Fiend character. And, you know, I started to talk to Wyndham, and this was earlier last year. I want to say like around March, April. I reached out to him. I told him about my situation. I told him about my diabetes diagnosis. I told him about my elevated liver. And he disclosed with me that the reason why he had been pulled from WrestleMania and everything that he was supposed to be a part of last year was due to his COVID diagnosis. Unfortunately, Wyndham passed away in August. And, you know, I want to add his name to this Terramana toast that I'm about to have. So I just want to have a toast and Oscar salute.
Thank you. Salute. Thank you
And,
very much, Rob.
you're welcome. And Oscar is from Mexico, and he knows that Jalisco, Mexico makes the best tequila. And I don't know how I can get Oscar to have a shot one day, but I don't know, maybe if not in this life, in the afterlife. But anyways, you know, I wanted to take that moment to make a toast to Oscar, to make a toast to his mom, to the 11 years of ARCG, the 20 plus years of Silas Pro, and of course my friend Wyndham. You know, you're very missed. So Oscar, I wanted to ask you, one of the final questions I'm going to ask you is, if you could sum up your current mindset and outlook on life in one word, what would it be and why?
I want to say confidence, because there are things that I feel I have to overcome, not necessarily on a daily basis, but for example, I was feeling discouraged last week because my wife and I were sick. We were feeling bad. We stayed home for 5 days because we had a cold, and I felt discouraged. And was as soon as I started to feel better, I started to reach out for the things that I knew would make me feel better. One of those things was, of course, music. One of those things was, of course, the Lord. We did pray a lot. We thanked Him for making us feel better. And I just want to say that I feel confident right now. So, confidence would probably be the word that I would choose. Feeling confident.
I like that. I ask everyone this question, at least everyone that's going to be on the podcast. And I usually have a message after every episode is completed. So, with you being the guest today, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And this is my final question. If you could share one message with the world, what would it be and why?
I would say don't give up. I feel that if I would have given up on a lot of the things that I have accomplished, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I want to say, don't give up would be the message I would leave you with today. The reasoning for that would be our mental health, our physical health as well. We all have different challenges that we have to overcome. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean on a daily basis. We might be worried about something that hasn't even happened yet. It's just don't give up. Don't lose sight of your vision, your dream, and you'll be able to accomplish it. I want to say that to me, don't give up would be the message I would leave.
Thank you for sharing that, Oscar. And that's something I believe in. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. It's a famous quote from John Cena.
Oh, is it?
He
Oh,
always says,
okay.
"Don't give up." He even has a T-shirt that says, "Don't give up." And there's a beautiful, Oscar. I know that you are a big Cricket Wireless supporter, and you actually still have Cricket Wireless, right?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah, yeah. So I had Cricket Wireless a few years ago, and before people think I'm going crazy for getting off subject, I'm in subject about this. So a few years ago, Cricket Wireless, who's one of WWE's sponsors and partners, surprised John Cena with a beautiful video, and it was a video of a young little boy who shared with John Cena a story about his mom having cancer and how she beat it, and he feels that the reason why his mom was able to overcome it is because when she got diagnosed with cancer, he told his mom, "Mom, John Cena always says don't give up, never give up."
Wow.
And the video also showed other people also telling John Cena that they believed in his words. So I'm not sure if you know this, Oscar. John Cena announced about a month ago that next year is it's actually his farewell tour started already. But
Oh,
next year,
wow.
John Cena will be finally hanging up the boots, and he's retiring from professional wrestling,
Wow,
from
I did not
in-ring
know that.
competition. Yeah,
Okay.
so he has a farewell tour. I got to get you tickets the next time they go to Corpus Christi because I hope John Cena's on the card that night.
Wow. That'd be
But
amazing.
one of the biggest inspirations is that word, that line, "Don't give up." So thank you, Oscar, for saying that.
Wow.
Folks, this concludes episode 9, Patience. It's an episode I've been wanting to have for so long. Oscar is such a busy guy, so Oscar, thank you for finally having the time to join us. Um, Oscar's message to the world is beautiful. As I always say to everyone, we have one life to live. Live it well. I want to wish everyone the very best always. And before we go, Oscar, I know you mentioned some social handles earlier. Where can people find you on social media?
They're able to find me at Oanderly everywhere. I do have that as my main brand account. And also below here, of course, is my Oanderly Music. On that one, I am on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. I also have an Instagram for Oanderly Music, but I haven't used it as much as of yet. You're also able to find my Facebook page for Oanderly Music as well. Yes, so Oanderly, I'm not sure if you know this, Rob, is actually a characterization of my first, middle, and last name, which is Oscar Alexander Leal. So I took some of the syllables from that to come up with Oanderly. So yes,
I
it's
like that.
a part of my name, and
I like
I've
that.
thank you, Rob. And I want to say I've had that probably for about 20 years already. So it's been my handle
Wow.
for a very long time.
Wow. 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 That's amazing. You learn something new every day. So, Oscar, thank you for sharing that. Also, Oscar, you have a website just in case people want to inquire or in your services. So, do you mind sharing that website with everyone?
Sure. It's Silas Pro. That's SILISPRO.com. And on there, I offer website hosting services for WordPress. So if you have any interest in having a website hosted using a WordPress theme, I'm able to set them up as quickly as 24 hours. So if anybody needs that, feel free to contact me.
So when this episode airs, I'll make sure that to add all of Oscar's details and the website in the description in the link. So once again, Oscar, thank you for coming on the Resilient Podcast. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing all this beautiful information with us when it comes to patience and resilience. On behalf of Oscar, I am Rob Aurelius. This is the Resilient Podcast. I look forward to seeing you all in episode 10. And for now, I just want to say, may God bless you all and peace always.